Welcome to episode 113 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by a 17 Laws guy. It's February 21, 1970. We're at Vicarage Road, and this is one of those football afternoons that look small on paper, a single goal, a single upset, what turns out to be a hinge in history. Because Watford, only promoted from 3rd Division the past summer, beat Bill Shankly's Liverpool 1-0 in the FA Cup quarter-final. And that defeat didn't just knock Liverpool out of the cup. It convinced Shankly that his great team of the 1960s, the one he built from scratch, the one that brought league titles back to Anfield and won the club's first FA Cup, had reached the end of its road. And what Shankly did next, he built the Liverpool of the 1970s, the Liverpool that wins the league again, wins Europe for the first time, and then hands Bob Paisley a machine that will become European champions. So today is about one match, but really it's about Shankly building two great Liverpool sides, and how Watford 1, Liverpool 0 became the moment he finally pulled the trigger on the second one. So how did we get here? To understand 1970, you have to go back to Shankly's arrival at Anfield in 1959, when Liverpool was stuck in Division 2, heavy with history, and strangely unable to move. Shankly didn't just buy players, he built an operating system, a staff culture, a training culture, a belief culture. He built what would become the boot room, that little nerve center where Shankly and his lieutenants drank tea, argued details, and made football feel like an industry you could perfect. Episode 31 of OTD was about Shankly's arrival at Anfield, a great story in and of itself. Very much recommend listening to it. After Shankly had settled in at Liverpool, he built a spine. 1961, Ron Yeats arrives to become the Colossus at the back, and Ian St. John arrives to become the spark up front. Shankly called them the beginning of Liverpool's rise. And rise they did. In 63-64, Liverpool win the league. 64-65, they win the FA Cup for the first time in the club's history. And in 65-66, they win the league again. This is Shankly's first great Liverpool. Tommy Lawrence in goal, Yeats at centre-half, St. John and Roger Hunt up front. A team that turned Anfield into a political rally, a theatre, a fortress. But football does what it always does. It moves. And by the late 1960s, that first great side is aging. You can see it in the patterns. The legs aren't quite the same. The sharpness isn't quite the same. The margins start turning against you. And that's the hardest moment for a great manager, because you're not managing a team. You're managing icons, men whose names are stitched into the club's identity. Now, Liverpool in February 1970 are still Liverpool, still feared, still massive. But they arrive at Vicarage Road for an FA Cup quarter-final and step into a trap that football loves setting for giants. A hungry home side, a tight pitch, a noisy crowd, and 90 minutes where status means nothing. Watford's manager is Ken Furphy. Like Shankly, he had built his side over years, and in April 1969, they secured promotion to 2nd Division for the first time. And almost a year later, they're on a cup run, including a 4th-round upset, winning 1-0 at home against 1st Division side Stoke City, with names like Gordon Banks in goal and Jimmy Greenhoff. They're not supposed to be here, but cup runs don't ask permission. And Liverpool helped them believe early. The match reports painted as one of those games where the underdog's chances come not in a plan, but in moments that suddenly feel electric. Watford gets into positions. They miss an open look. They force Liverpool to scramble. Liverpool have the ball, but it's sterile, possession without incision, and crucially, Liverpool are without key men, the kind of absence you don't feel until you need leadership in a hostile cup tie. At halftime, it's 0-0, which for Watford is oxygen, and for Liverpool is pressure. Then comes the moment. 63 minutes, a quick throw, a move down the flank, a delivery into the box, and Barry Endine rises and heads it in. Watford 1, Liverpool 0. And suddenly Vicarage Road isn't hosting Liverpool, it's hunting them. Liverpool push, they throw men forward, they try to turn weight of expectations into goals. But Watford do what underdogs must do after scoring the biggest goal of their lives. They become organized, furious, and unbreakable. They defend as if every clearance is a declaration. They treat every Liverpool attack as a personal insult. And when the whistle goes, the scoreboard looks absurd, not because Watford didn't deserve it, but because football's hierarchy has been inverted in one clean number. Watford 1, Liverpool 0. And that's where most stories would end. Cup shock, headlines, giant killing, on to the next round. But this story begins after the whistle. Because inside Bill Shankly, something clicks. Not rage, not excuses, but recognition. This wasn't just one of those days. To Shankly, it was evidence. Evidence that his first great Liverpool, the one he had dragged into existence, had reached the point every great side reaches, where the mind still knows what to do, but the body can't always deliver it. As Shankly had always believed one thing: if you want to stay at the top, you can't rebuild politely. You rebuild before you're forced to rebuild. Liverpool's own club documentary later calls this match the Watford shocker, and says it convinced Shankly that he had to renovate his first team and be ruthless, even with legends. That detail that makes it feel almost cinematic is what happens next. The documentary describes Shankly taking the players away to Blackburn for a practice match and starting it with a new team, then writing down names, and then in effect begin the call. That's the hinge, not the goal, but the decision. Now zoom out, because here's the extraordinary part. Shankly had already done this once. In 1959, he had walked into a decaying structure and cleared the decks. He had put 24 names on the transfer list and effectively told the club, sentiment will not outrank standards. Now in 1970, he's doing the same thing again, but this time the names aren't deadwood, they are mythology. Over the next stretch, Shankly moves on pillars of the mid-60s side, including Tommy Lawrence, Ron Yeats, and Ian St. John, and replaces them with the nucleus of a new Liverpool. And the names of that nucleus read like the start of a dynasty. Ray Clemens in goal, Larry Lloyd and Alec Lindsay in defence, Steve Highway out wide, John Toshak as the new centre forward, then a hyper-energetic forward from Scunthorpe, Kevin Keegan. This is Shankly building his second great Liverpool. And it doesn't happen in one summer or with one magical signing. No, it happens the Shankly way. Incremental upgrades, relentless fitness, system over stardom, and the boot room constantly refining the machine. Even the setbacks become part of the build. In 1971, Liverpool reached the FA Cup final and lose to Arsenal. And that summer, Shankly signs Kevin Keegan, a move Liverpool later described as the start of the side that would dominate the 70s. Now look at what comes next, because this is where Watford 1970 becomes the first domino. In 72-73, Liverpool win the league again, and they win the UEFA Cup, their first European trophy, beating Borussia Mönchengladbach over 2 legs. That's Shankly's second peak. A new team, new legs, new hunger, but the same core values. Then comes the final act of Shankly's managerial career, 73-74. Liverpool win the FA Cup again. And soon after, Shankly steps away, which leaves the club in the hands of the very culture he built, the boot room, the continuity, the shared football language. Bob Paisley doesn't inherit a squad, he inherits a system, and then turns that system into European championships. Now we should also give Watford their due, because for them this wasn't just the day we beat Liverpool. This was the high point of a cup run that took them all the way to the FA Cup semi-final at White Hart Lane, where they eventually fell 1-5 to Chelsea, who then won the cup against Leeds at Wembley. So for Watford, on this day in 1970, they get a day of immortality. But Liverpool gets something even bigger, a reason to evolve. And that's the so what here, the sliding doors moment. If Liverpool win at Vicarage Road, maybe Shankly delays the hard decisions. Maybe sentiment buys another season. Maybe the rebuild comes later and costs more. Instead, they lose. And Shankly treats the loss like a diagnosis. That's what great managers do. They don't just react to results, they extract meaning. And Shankly's meaning was clear. The first great Liverpool had given him everything. But if Liverpool wanted the next chapter, he had to break his own masterpiece and build again. So 3 things to take away from February 21, 1970. First, cup shocks are not always accidents. Sometimes they are alarms. The scoreboard humiliates you, but the real damage is what it reveals. Second, the rarest managerial skill isn't building a great team once. It's knowing when to dismantle it and having the authority to do it. And third, Liverpool's dynasty wasn't a lightning bolt. It was continuity, the boot room, the standards, the shared language, allowing one rebuild to flow into the next. On this day in 1970, Watford scored 1 header at Vicarage Road, and inside Liverpool, it detonated the decision that rebuilt the giant. and set up the dynasty of the 1970s and beyond. That's all for episode 113 of OTD, the Daily Dose of Soccer History by 17 Laws Guy. Before we close, a teaser. Because tomorrow, we go back to the birth of the laws themselves. Episode 114 is February 22nd, 1866, the FA's annual general meeting and the rule changes that start to shape football into a recognizable modern game. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help it climb the charts by rating it, sharing it with friends, give it 5 stars. It really helps. And if you have a great idea for the show, email me at otd@17lawsguy.com and I'd be happy to research your story for the show. See you tomorrow.